The November rain in Portland didn't just fall. It felt like it was trying to drown the city. And the weather matched my head perfectly. My name is Nathan Cole, and it had been 6 months since the botched raid at the Easton warehouse. 6 months since a hidden explosive took the life of my partner and best friend, Detective Ray Donnelly. I survived with a shattered femur and a soul that felt even more fractured. Relegated to desk duty, drowning in survivor's guilt, I was a ghost haunting the halls of the 14th precinct. My therapist had suggested a companion. Get a dog, Nathan, Dr. Ellis told me, and the advice felt like a hollow cliche. Yet on a bleak Tuesday, I found myself pulling my beat-up Bronco into the muddy lot of the county animal shelter. Inside, the air was thick with bleach, wet fur, and palpable anxiety, a deafening chorus of abandoned souls begging for a second chance. But I wasn't looking for a playful golden retriever or a cuddly rescue pup. I was looking for something that understood exactly how I felt. The shelter manager, Megan Hayes, tired eyes, clipboard clutched her chest, led me down a concrete corridor. I've shown you every large breed we have, Officer Cole. You passed on the labs, the collies, even a beautiful Malamute mix. What are you looking for? I don't know, I admitted, leaning on my cane. I'll know when I see him. She stopped at a heavy steel door marked isolation. Authorized personnel only, her knuckles white on the clipboard. There's one more, but he's not up for adoption. He's scheduled for euthanasia on Friday. When I asked why, she sighed. He's a retired police canine, a purebred German shepherd named Diesel. The department itself brought him in 3 weeks ago. He's been labeled irreparably aggressive. I knew the local handlers. Diesel, whose dog was he? Sergeant Grant Walker, she said quietly. I froze. Grant Walker was a decorated hero in the precinct, a rising star in the tactical division. What did the dog do? He turned on Walker. During a routine drug bust, unprovoked, Diesel snapped, tore up Walker's left arm so badly he needed 40 stitches. When backup tried to pull him off, he nearly took off a patrolman's hand. The department discharged him, and a judge ordered him put down. He's dangerous, Nathan. He hates everyone. I stared at the steel door. A canine turning on its handler is incredibly rare. These dogs are bred for loyalty, trained to take a bullet for their human partners. Something about the story didn't sit right. Let me see him. The isolation wing was dead silent. One occupied cage at the very end. As I approached, the shadows shifted. Diesel was massive, easily 85 pounds, his black and tan coat matted and dull, a jagged scar down the left side of his snout. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold, piercing, intelligent amber, burning with raw fury and something deeper. Betrayal. As I stepped toward the fence, he didn't bark or growl. He lowered his head, bared his teeth, and let out a low rumble that seemed to shake the concrete. A clear warning. Come closer and I'll kill you. See, Megan whispered. Even the staff won't feed him without a catch pole. I didn't step back. Ignoring the pain in my leg, I lower myself to the cold floor, cross my legs, and drop my cane beside me. Now I level with him. What are you doing? Megan hissed, giving him space. For 20 minutes, neither of us moved. I just breathed slowly, staring at the concrete in front of his paws, offering no threat, demanding no submission. And I looked at his defensive posture, the trembling muscles beneath his fur, and I knew that look. I saw in the mirror every morning. It wasn't the look of a monster. It was the look of a soldier who'd been left behind. Slowly the rumble in his chest subsided. He took one hesitant step forward, then another, until his nose was an inch from the fence. I didn't reach to pet him. I just met his eyes. I know, I whispered. I know exactly how much it hurts. He let out a long, shuddering sigh and lay down right against the fence, his back pressed toward me, a gesture of monumental trust from an animal that was supposed to be a killer. I pulled myself up and looked at the stunned shelter manager. Print the paperwork. I'm taking him home. The backlash was immediate. By the time I got Diesel to my modest house in the suburbs, my phone was blowing up. The worst call came from Captain David Mercer. Are you out of your damn mind, Nate? That animal chewed up Grant Walker. He's a liability. If he bites a civilian, the city gets sued into the Stone Age, and I will personally see to it you lose your pension. He's a retired veteran of the force, Cap, I said calmly, watching Diesel pace the living room rug. He deserves a quiet retirement, not a lethal injection. He's a loaded weapon. Watch your back, Cole. You're making a massive mistake. For the first few days, I feared he might be right. Living with Diesel was like living with an unexploded bomb. He refused to eat from a bowl, only taking food if I tossed it on the floor and walked away. He paced constantly, claws clicking on the hardwood all night. Worse were the night terrors. On our third night, I woke to vicious snarling and tearing fabric, grabbed my service weapon, and limped out to find him shredding the couch cushions, eyes wide and unseeing, trapped in some invisible combat. Diesel. Hey! He snapped out of it, realized where he was, and immediately cowered, pressing into the corner, expecting a beating. I put the gun away, sat on the floor opposite the ruined couch, and tossed him a piece of jerky. It's okay, buddy. The ghosts get me at night, too. Slowly, a fragile bond formed. I realized Diesel wasn't unpredictable. He was communicating in a language no one had been listening to. He learned I'd never raise a hand in anger. By the end of the second week, he'd stopped pacing and started sleeping at the foot of my bed, his heavy head resting on my bad leg, a warm pressure that eased the ache. The real breakthrough, and the start of the nightmare, came on a rainy Thursday. I'd brought home a banker's box of cold case files, including the file on the Easton warehouse ambush. Officially, the case was closed. The department blamed a local cartel for the explosive that killed Ray. But I could never shake the feeling we'd walked into a setup. Someone had known we were coming. I spread the crime scene photos and sealed evidence bags across my dining table and heard a low, guttural growl. Diesel stood rigid, for standing along his spine, amber eyes locked on the table. He wasn't acting erratic. This was a highly trained, specialized state, his alert posture. He bypassed the photos and zeroed in on one plastic evidence bag. Inside was a torn scrap of dark fabric, snagged on a fence at the rear of the warehouse, the suspected escape route of whoever detonated the bomb. The lab had tested it, but the DNA was degraded by rain, and it was dismissed as a dead end. Diesel pressed his nose to the bag and let out a sharp, booming bark, then sat, staring at it intensely. My heart pounded. I knew canine protocols inside out. Bark and sit. A positive identification alert. But Diesel wasn't a bomb dog or a narcotics dog. He was a suspect apprehension and tracking dog. He was alerting to a scent he recognized. I pulled on latex gloves and unsealed the bag. The smell was faint, masked by mildew and mud, but underneath it, a distinct odor. A very specific, high-end men's cologne mixed with the metallic tang of gun oil. A scent I knew. A scent that wafted through the precinct locker room every single morning. The signature cologne of Sergeant Grant Walker. I stared at the fabric, then down at the dog, and the pieces slammed together with sickening clarity. Diesel hadn't gone crazy and attacked his handler for no reason. Dogs don't lie. Dogs don't play politics. Diesel had recognized the scent of the man who'd planted the bomb that killed Ray Donnelly. He'd figured out his own handler was a dirty cop, and he'd attacked him for it. And Walker had almost had the dog executed to bury the evidence. The stray I'd saved from death row had just handed me the key to my partner's murder. But this wasn't a cartel anymore. This was a traitor inside our own house. And the moment Walker learned the dog was still alive, neither of us would be safe. If I walked into the captain's office and accused a decorated sergeant of murder based on a dog's reaction to a scrap of cloth, I'd be laughed out of the precinct, maybe committed to a psych hold. And Walker would make the dog disappear. I needed irrefutable proof. The next morning, I made a quiet call to Detective Kevin Doyle, a cynical but scrupulously honest veteran in cyber crimes who'd been close to Ray. We met off the grid at a rundown diner outside town. I slid a folder across the table. I need you to dig into Grant Walker's finances, Kev. Offshore routing numbers, shell companies, anything that started seeing heavy deposits about 8 months ago, right when the Navarro cartel started gaining territory in the South End. Kevin raised a skeptical eyebrow. Walker? Nathan, that's the captain's golden boy. Mercer catches me running his financials without a warrant. I lose my pension. Ray was murdered, Kevin. I said, dropping to a gravelly whisper. It wasn't a cartel ambush. It was a hit. Walker tipped them off and supplied the explosives. Just look at the routing numbers. Give me 24 hours. While Kevin dug, I took Diesel on a field trip, an abandoned industrial park near the county line, owned by a defunct shell company I suspected was a Navarro front. Away from prying eyes, I tested my theory. I clipped a long tracking lead to Diesel's collar, pulled out the evidence bag, and let him get a deep inhale of the cologne and gun oil. Find him, Diesel. Find the scent. His demeanor shifted instantly. The anxiety vanished, replaced by the laser focus of a professional. He dropped his nose to the earth and pulled. For 45 minutes, he dragged me through weeds, rusted shipping containers, and broken glass, my cane biting into the gravel. Finally, he stopped dead before a corrugated steel shed hidden behind a pile of scrap iron, sat, and let out a single booming bark. I drew my pistol, kicked the padlock off, and swung the door open. Inside, my flashlight found the Holy Grail, a wooden crate packed with military-grade C4 identical to the compound used at Easton, plus a ledger and a gym bag stuffed with banded stacks of hundreds. But the most damning thing sat on top of the crate, a canine bite sleeve, torn to shreds and soaked in dried blood. Walker hadn't been bitten during a drug bust. He'd been bitten here at the cartel stash house when Diesel caught him handling the explosives. My phone buzzed. Kevin, voice trembling. Nathan, you were right. Came in accounts, over 400 grand deposited this past year. But there's a problem. The precinct security software flagged my inquiry. Walker's supervisor login just overrode my access. He knows we're looking at him. Get out of the precinct, Kev. Go home, lock your doors, and call Inspector Brennan in Internal Affairs. Tell him to meet me at, before I could finish, an incoming call from an unknown number. I switched lines. You should have left well enough alone, Nate. Grant Walker's voice slithered through, calm and chillingly even. You always were too stubborn for your own good. Just like Ray. It's over, Walker, I said, gripping my pistol. I have the explosives, the ledger, and your blood on a bite sleeve. A low, humorless chuckle. Do you? Because right now I'm looking at a very lovely young lady named Megan Hayes at the animal shelter, working the late shift alone. It'd be a tragedy if a cartel hit squad made an example of her. My blood ran ice cold. If you touch her, I will tear you apart. Then let's make a trade. You, me, and the mutt. Pier 9, the old shipping docks. 1 hour. Bring the ledger and the dog. I let the girl live. Call backup. Call Mercer. And Megan takes a bullet to the head. The line went dead. I looked down at Diesel, his amber eyes glowing in the dim shed. He knew we were going to war. I reached into the Bronco and pulled out a heavy black Kevlar vest, Police K9 emblazoned in white, and strapped it onto his broad chest. All right, buddy, I whispered, voice thick. Let's go clear our names. The rain was torrential by the time my Bronco rolled onto the weed-choked asphalt of Pier 9, a graveyard of rusted cranes and rotting shipping containers under the sickly orange glow of a single street lamp, the water crashing against the pylons below. I stepped out, ledger under my left arm, pistol heavy in my right. Diesel flanked me, dark fur blending into the storm, making no sound, tense as a coiled spring, matching my limping gait. Headlights flicked on at the far end of the pier, blinding me. 2 men stepped from the shadows with suppressed submachine guns, cartel muscle. Then Grant Walker emerged from the glare holding a heavy .45, immaculate, even in the rain, in a tailored tactical jacket. I didn't think you'd actually show, Nate, he called over the roar. Figured you'd cower behind your desk like you've done for 6 months. Let Megan go, Grant, I shouted, stepping in front of Diesel to shield him from the gunman's line of sight. Walker smirked. Megan's fine. Home watching TV. I just needed a lever to get you out here. Couldn't have you taking that ledger to IA. Why, Grant? My voice cracked with rage and grief. Ray trusted you. He looked up to you. Why kill your own brother in arms? He shrugged, a gesture of monstrous indifference. Ray found out about my arrangement with the Navarro family. Stumbled onto a payoff. I offered to cut him in. I really did. But he was too righteous. Said he was going to Mercer. I couldn't let a Boy Scout ruin my life. So I set the trap at the warehouse. His eyes found Diesel, and pure hatred crossed his face. And then this damn mutt caught my scent on the C4 packaging. Tried to rip my throat out before I could dispose of it. Should have put a bullet in his head right then. He's twice the cop you'll ever be, I snarled. Maybe, Walker said, raising his pistol. But tonight the story reads that Nathan Cole lost his mind, drove to the docks, and got mauled to death by the rabid dog he foolishly adopted. I arrived just in time to put the beast down. Tragic. Poetic. He turned to the gunman. Kill him. I didn't hesitate. I dropped the ledger, threw myself behind a rusted steel barricade, and roared the command. Diesel, apprehend. He didn't run. He exploded forward with terrifying speed, launching through the rain. Before the first gunman could track him in the dark, Diesel hit his chest like an 80-pound missile, jaws locking onto his forearm, the Kevlar vest protecting the dog as they crashed to the wet asphalt. I popped up and fired twice. My rounds found the second gunman, dropping him instantly. But Walker was a seasoned tactical veteran. He ignored the chaos, aimed at me, and fired. The bullet grazed my shoulder, spinning me, and my bad leg buckled. I hit the ground hard, my pistol skittering into a puddle. Walker kicked it away and stood over me, the .45 aimed at my face. Checkmate, Nate. Suddenly, a horrific shriek echoed across the pier. The first gunman lay unconscious, and Diesel was free. He saw his new handler on the ground with a weapon pointed at him, and his amber eyes flared with primal fury. Walker heard the claws on asphalt and spun, firing wildly. One bullet sparked off Diesel's vest, throwing him slightly off balance, but the dog didn't break stride. He launched into the air, bypassing Walker's arm entirely, and slammed his chest into the corrupt sergeant's torso, knocking him backward into a stack of pallets. The .45 flew from Walker's hand and splashed into the water below. Walker screamed in terror as Diesel stood over him, jaws hovering inches from his throat, teeth bared, a thunderous growl in his chest. This was the man who had betrayed him, who had tried to kill him. Every instinct told the dog to finish it. Diesel, hail! I yelled, struggling to my knees, clutching my bleeding shoulder. For a terrifying second, I thought the trauma was too deep, that he wouldn't listen. But his ears twitched. He looked back at me and demonstrated an unparalleled level of discipline. He released his stance, stepped back from Walker, trotted to my side, and sat rigidly, placing himself directly between me and the threat. Sirens pierced the night, red and blue cutting through the rain. IA cruisers flanked by SWAT, led by Captain Mercer, swarmed the pier. Kevin had done his job. Officers poured out, swarmed Walker, and clapped him in irons. Mercer walked over, taking in the wounded officer, the cartel bodies, the ledger on the ground, and finally the massive German shepherd sitting stoically at attention. He took off his rain-slicked hat, his face pale. Cole, Kevin showed me the financials, the explosive residue. My God, Walker, it's over, Cap. I breathed, leaning on Diesel's strong back to pull myself upright. Ray's finally at peace. Mercer looked down at the dog he'd ordered euthanized weeks earlier. Diesel looked back, calm and unbroken. I guess I owe you the biggest apology of my career, Cole. Both of you. 6 months later, the sun was actually shining. The Navarro cartel had been completely dismantled using Walker's ledger, and Walker himself sat in federal prison awaiting trial for Ray's murder. In the precinct courtyard, hundreds of officers gathered in their dress blues. I stood at attention in a freshly pressed uniform, walking with only a slight limp, and beside me, wearing a polished harness adorned with a shimmering gold shield, sat K9 Diesel. The mayor read the citation for the Medal of Valor, and as the medal was pinned to his harness, the whole precinct erupted in applause. Afterward, Megan Hayes walked up, beaming, and knelt to scratch Diesel behind the ears. He leaned into her touch, his eyes soft and warm. He looks incredible, Nathan. I can't believe this is the same dog. He just needed someone to listen to him, I said. Diesel looked up, amber eyes shining with absolute devotion. We had both been broken, discarded, and left to fight our demons alone. But together we'd walked through the fire and found our way home. Ready to go to work, partner? I asked. He answered with a sharp, happy bark, tail wagging, as we walked out of the precinct doors together, ready to protect the city that had once turned its back on us. What an incredible journey of redemption. We proved that sometimes the most broken souls are the ones capable of the greatest loyalty. If this story of justice, bravery, and second chances gave you chills, hit that like button and share it with the dog lovers in your life. Don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable, true-to-life rescue stories. See you next time.